Well, hello, everyone. Today, I am joined by the illustrious Nick from the Book Graveyard. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Jeff.
And the amazing Chris from Liminal Spaces. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Chris.
And today we're here to talk about Worst Things Waiting by Manly Wade Wellman.
I don't want to show my copy. I got envy.
I took my jacket off to not mess it up.
Smart.
I don't know if you've looked at yours, but look how cool it looks.
It's like really, I have looked at it. It does look
this
cool.
Deep black with this like blood red.
Red and black are awesome colors together.
Looks so good.
This has like what do you call it, Mylar or whatever somebody had put on it. It's not a library edition, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. If you remember my video, I think I took it off live while I was recording it, and it was like trying to get it off. So
I just want to say really quick that so that's the video that I first saw of you, was you talking about this book, and it was an incredible video, and I was super excited, and I was like, I discovered a new booktuber. I'm so jazzed. I'm going to be the first to tell anybody about Jeff. And then I popped YouTube back open, and Nick was already talking about you. So Nick was the first. I think this was the first video you saw of his, wasn't it, Nick?
I don't know. I think I was there right at the beginning because I think Jeff, you were commenting before making videos, right?
I was, yeah. I think I was watching Chris, but was for sure watching you and the other, Jake and Tim and a few others, Michael K. Vaughn and stuff like that. But Nick was the very first one, and Jake too, because I did my first video. Chris, I think this one was my second or my third that I did about Worst Things Waiting. I had one about some science fiction pulp books, and those guys were in a few others, like Ira was there pretty early for that. But you were, but when you pimped it on your channel, that was both of you guys. I really appreciate all the support. It's been a fun. It's almost a year now. End of this coming month, March, it'll be 1 year that I've been doing this. So,
well, I wouldn't want to talk about this book with anybody else, not after seeing that video. You seem to be the master on this book.
Well, it's funny. I haven't read it all, but I've read most of the stories in it several times, including the ones we're going to talk about. But because when I approached you guys with this, I'm not going to ask you to read an entire book that's full of, 25 stories or something in there. There must be close to that. And that's quite a heavy commitment. So the consensus was maybe we should talk about a few. So I tried to pick a few that were a little bit different or a little representative. So first off, Nick, I know you have experience with Wellman through the Silver John, the John the Balladeer stories, and a few other stories you've read in Weird Tales. These are all from Weird Tales in here. So what did you what's your opinion about or thinking about Manly Wade Wellman before you read these, and has anything changed or since you did read these stories? So kind of your overview, I guess, of Wellman and his work, I suppose.
Oh, it just reaffirmed it. It's just as great as Silver John. In fact, some of these could be Silver John stories if you just changed characters around. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. It's Appalachian folklore.
Yeah.
Frogfather and Doe, which we didn't read Doe, those are considered by some people who study Wellman and Weird Tales that those were kind of prototypical John the Balladeer stories in a way. So although I don't see how Doe would be that way, but Frogfather for sure could be in a way. And there's
I'm sorry. We're not even to the stories yet. Go ahead. You're still doing
that. No. I want so just I guess I'm going to move to Chris because Chris might be a newbie for Wellman, but so you're basically just saying that this wasn't a disappointment. In other words,
no way. It's brilliant. I love them.
And Chris, I think these are your first. This is your first experience with Wellman. So what is your take just on an overview of his writing style or his themes or whatever?
Yeah, this was my first reading of Wellman, and I've been excited. I mean, the reason I bought this book is because I'd heard people talk about Wellman and just saw this in the store and was like, I'm going to grab this because I don't find Wellman at all. So I just grabbed it up, and then it sat on my shelf because I was doing other stuff and reading other stuff. And but I think, Nick, you've sent me a Wellman book as well at one point. But a sci-fi Wellman. But I've always wanted to read him, and I've been getting more into weird tales, so I was excited about this. And yeah, I think after reading the first two, I had to send an email to you guys that was just like, this is incredible, and it really is. This is some of the best Weird Tales era stuff I've read. Absolutely incredible. I'm probably gonna read the entire book slowly over time and cover more of it on the channel, because this is
awesome.
This is right in the type of stuff I love. I mean, it was great.
I was hoping so. I was reading it going, is this liberal enough for Chris? I'm not sure if it is, but
I think so, definitely. Especially that last novelette we'll talk about. Mm-hmm. There was a literal liminal hole in the ground to another world. Yeah,
that is true. Well, what do you guys know about background of Wellman? I thought I might just do a quick author bio real quick. I think Nick knows quite a bit, but Chris, did you do any research on Wellman at all?
No, but I think he probably has the coolest name in history. I mean, seriously.
That's his real name. Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, he had quite a life. He was born in 1903, passed away in 1986. He was born in where was it? Silva, near a small village called Camandongo, near Silvo Porto in Portuguese West Africa. So his dad was, I think, a doctor or some kind of he was doing something over there, some kind of work with the Africans. And then he came back. His first professional sale was to Farnsworth Wright, Weird Tales. It was a story called Back to the Beast in November 1927. So he was in there pretty early.
Yeah, isn't their first year 26 or is it 27?
I think it's 23, isn't it? I'm not quite sure though, but it's very early on that it started. I think it started off. It became a much different kind of magazine as it went on. I think.
Yeah.
Talk about that too. He wrote one Captain Future novel. Edmund Hamilton wrote most of them, but he did write one, and it was published in paperback. I'd love to find that, but it's called The Solar Invasion. If you guys are familiar with Captain Future, kind of pulpy science fiction.
Solar Invasion is part of a series.
Solar Invasion is one of the Captain Future books, and some of them were republished. The pulps there were like 20 something, and most of them are all even under us, because I have one called Danger Planet as by Brett Sterling, but that's Edmund Hamilton writing under a pseudonym. So, but Manly Wade Wellman did write one, and it's The Solar Invasion. So have you seen that in the wild?
March 1923. Sorry,
I have the paperback. The Solar Invasion has the Frazetta cover on it.
Well, there you go. That's a Wellman. So
is that the one you sent me, Tim, with that guy standing there?
I'm Nick,
buff?
Chris. It's good to meet you.
Damn it! Did I say Tim again? Oh my God!
There is a resemblance.
No.
All the Eves are interchangeable.
Oh my goodness! Sorry,
I can cut that out if you want, but maybe I won't.
Is that the one you sent me though? That
it might be. I think the one that I find the most is
Twice in Time as well.
Twice in Time, yes.
That's the one. Yeah, Twice in Time has his name, and then there's also War of the Sherlock Holmes and War of the Worlds or something like that. I have in a paperback back home, but I don't have it with me here. But yeah, he of course he wrote for comics. Well, he was in New York for a while. He wrote for Captain Marvel Adventures for Fawcett. I'm not familiar so much. I guess that's a pre-Marvel line or something. He also wrote for Black Hawk, and when Will Eisner was in World War II, I think he wrote some of the Spirit for Will Eisner. So, and I know Nick knows this one, that there was an Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine Award that Wellman won in 1946, and William Faulkner lost. William Faulkner submitted a story and lost to Wellman, and he was pissed about it.
That's funny.
Yes.
That is funny.
How dare a pulp writer beat him at writing?
Oh, good Lord.
Well, and also because, in the 50s, I think I mentioned this in my Wellman video that, he kind of stepped back, those markets dried up and he started writing more regional stuff and a lot of juvenile fiction and nonfiction. And his nonfiction historical work, Rebel Beast, was nominated for the Pulitzer in 1956. So, and he also worked as a harvest hand, a cowboy, a roadhouse bouncer, and a newspaper man. So he got around.
He was manly.
He was manly.
Did he go by Manly or did he go by Wade?
I think he went by Manly. Because in a lot of these, I don't know if there's an introduction in this, Nick. Is there an introduction by Wagner in this one?
I don't think so.
There's not. In some of the Nightshade books editions and things, there's and the Thunston Hafner Press things. I should lean this way.
I've got him.
There are people reminiscing about meeting Wellman because late in his life he went to the World Fantasy Convention, and I think he went to some conventions in England, and he met Ramsey Campbell and hung out with Carl Wagner and David Drake. Those guys knew him in Chapel Hill in North Carolina, I think, and of course that that's when his career was kind of had a resurgence, and he got back to fantastical fiction and wrote some more. He started writing his Silver John novels for Doubleday. He wrote a couple of John Thunston novels. A lot of John Thunston stories appeared in Weird Tales, but they're not in this book. They're in the second one that Carcosa put out, which is called Lonely Vigils. Now, Nick, do you have Lonely Vigils?
Yes.
You bastard.
I don't have it. I've never even seen a copy of it.
Well, Chris, the version you have of This Worst Thing's Waiting, the same company put out Lonely Vigils, and it was also available for $20 for a while, but I don't know if it's
in paperback. Okay.
Yeah, in paperback.
Yeah.
I don't have the Carcosa Lonely Vigils.
Oh, okay.
Do you have the paperback one?
No, I think it's like a Doubleday, maybe. I don't know. It's in the other room.
No,
but it is a hardcover.
That's cool.
Well, yeah, Wellman. So Wellman had all these young admirers like Stuart David Schiff, who did the kind of semi-pro fanzine Whispers, which he won in the same World Fantasy Award that Wellman won. Did you guys know that this 1975 World Fantasy Convention, this won the best collection or anthology? That was the first ever World Fantasy Convention.
Oh, interesting.
And there was some pretty interesting. Lee Brown Coy, the artist of this book, also won for artist in that same year.
Because of this book?
It could be. I'm not sure on that, but I thought you guys would find it interesting, the novel, the best novel in 1975. So the novels up for World Fantasy Award was The Forgotten Beasts of Eld by Patricia A. McKillop, Paul Anderson's A Midsummer Tempest, H. Warner Munn. Speaking of Weird Tales, he had a novel, Merlin's Ring. And those were the only three novels, and the winner was The Forgotten Beasts of Eld. So,
I've
and the
got
story,
Merlin's Ring. It was in the Ballantine. It was the last Ballantine adult fantasy title.
That line is so cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. And they had some good stories too, including Ted Klein's The Events of Porth the Farm and Carl Edward Wagner's Styx. So, speaking of Wagner, who was forming Carcosa Press, and you guys must be wearing your Carcosa shirts. Yeah, it looks like it.
What are you talking about, Jeff?
I would if I had one, but I don't have one.
That shipping to Japan is pretty killer.
Here's Jeff's right here.
Oh,
Just
there's Jeff
on him.
Yeah, no, Nick did very kindly offer one for me, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it.
I will wear it with pride when I get it. So, Nick, you want to talk about Carcosa at all?
I don't know. I don't know, Jeff.
I don't have any Carcosa books. I don't
have anything written down. Hold on a second. I want to go grab my Lonely Vigils. I think that's the one that Virgil sent me that's signed.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Nick's getting all of his massive collection. I think Nick's beat me now for the Wellman collection.
I don't think I have the Lonely Vigils. So I was wrong.
Well, I think he sent you something from Carcosa, wasn't it? Morgenstern and others or something.
Well,
maybe
no.
I know he sent you a lot of cool hardbacks anyway. So
no, but I do have this that Virgil sent me, which is the
What Dreams May Come. I have that too, but without a good dust jacket, I think.
I've got the After Dark one.
Yeah, I saw that in your recent haul. That was really cool.
The
novels. Oh, sorry,
was that the sign? Oh,
nice.
Isn't your book signed too, Jeff?
Yeah, but it's kind of it's one of those, like a lot of those they do with like the plate, like they have a
separate,
like an insert card that they put in there.
Yeah,
but it's signed by Wellman and the artist Lee Brown Coy.
So cool.
I guess there were 500 in some of those that were signed, had the signed, because it was only a run of like 2,867 copies made complete, and then 536 of them were signed.
Okay.
So yeah, Carcosa was a small press put together by Carl Wagner, David Drake, and a guy named Jim Groce or Groce. I don't know how you'd pronounce that. Groce. I just think of Jim Croce, the singer. I think I'll just say Croce. I'll say the same way, I guess. But
not the Time in a Bottle guy.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that tune.
And they only put out 4 books, so they did this one, which is their first one. Yeah, only 4.
That's why
it's an expensive endeavor, I'm sure, and they're really well-made books, as you can tell. But Lonely Vigils was the second one, and that collects all of Wellman's John Thurston stories, and that one is quite rare. And then there's Morgenstern and others, which I think Virgil has. That's Hubie Cave. And there was one other one that I can't think of right now. I do mention it in my video, but another Weird Tales author, I think, collection of stories. So, and that was it. They just got the 4. And then I don't know if they went out of business or they shut it down for whatever. I know Carl Wagner had a turbulent life and some substance abuse problems and things, I think, which brought about and he had health problems as well. So he didn't live very long, poor guy, but he was also very talented dude. Have you read, Chris, any, or Nick, have you read any of the Kane stories by Carl Wagner?
I haven't. So it looks like Far Lands and Other Days by E. Hoffman Price is the other Carcosa release. No, I have not.
I think you would really like some of his short stories. So if you ever get one of it, he had a collection called In a Lonely Place. There was a paperback version. He had one of the stories that was up for the World Fantasy Awards called Sticks, and you would really like that, Chris. Okay. The Sticks, yeah. He has another story called 0220 or something like that. I forgot. That they're very memorable. Yeah, he's quite a talented guy, too. David Drake as well. So anyway, just to finish up with Wellman, he also got a World Fantasy Award Lifetime Achievement Award in 1980 and passed away. Unfortunately, he had a fall. He was a very hale and hearty guy, a lot like he describes his character, Judge Pursuant. I think Nick remembers him from The Hanging Stones, right? Kind of a big, strong guy, very much like himself, but he fell and he ended up having a bed rest or something, and he got gangrene and they had to cut off both of his legs, and then he ended up dying as a result of that. And a lot of people, including Harlan Ellison, he was the head of this auction at one of the World Fantasy Conventions to raise money for hospital bills and things for him, and a lot of other authors raised a bunch of funds to help him out, but he passed away, I think, from blood poisoning related to it or something, unfortunately. So kind of a sad end for guy, but he was 83, I think, or almost 83. So he had a pretty good run. Yeah. Ended up living a lot longer than Carl Wagner, as it turned out. So
he lived up in the mountains, just like these stories. Yeah, he had like a cabin up in the mountains, and he kind of lived the same life that he's writing about. He didn't just read about the stuff in a National Geographic. Like he knew the people, he knew the culture.
It shows in the stories, I think, as well.
Yeah. And he studied a lot about he was quite into, he wrote a lot about, Southern history in general, but also, like you said, they had a house in Chapel Hill, but he had the cabin up in the mountains, and he loved to spend time there, and he loved talking to the local people and listening to them. And that's where he garnered a lot of stuff that he uses in his books as far as the language and dialogue and such. But I think it's hard to tell because he pulled some stuff from real legends, but he also came up with a lot of his own. So
he's brilliant. You can't tell the difference.
No,
you can't tell what he made up and what is the local folklore.
Yeah, and Chris probably wouldn't have caught this yet, but Nick would have. In one of the stories, they talk about Pow's the long lost friend. I think Sergeant Jaeger uses it in Coven. That is like a Necronomicon for H.P. Lovecraft. That's one of those books that Wellman uses frequently for people to pull out spells of white magic, kind of. So there's some kind of fun cross-pollination between his stories as they go on. But I've jabbered on enough. Let's talk about the first story, which that I asked you guys to read, which is Frogfather, which was published in November 1946 issue of Weird Tales. Chris, you want to talk about Frogfather? What do you think about it, and what you want to go over briefly? What the setup?
So this was actually my favorite of the bunch. So thank you for starting me on this one. Yeah, I really reading this, I was like, okay, this is going to be incredible. And there was a lot going on with it, but the plot of the story is simple, and that is that there's a couple of there's three men, two white guys and a native guide or a native person that works for one of the white guys. This kind of boss guy's looking for frog legs, and he can hear these frogs croaking in a certain direction, and he says, let's go over there and kill some frogs and get some frog legs. And the native guide says, you don't want to go over there. That is a place that belongs to the Frogfather, and we don't go in there and mess around. And he's like, whatever, we're going in there. And the native's like, well, then I'm going to get off the boat. And I think the guy forces him to swim off.
Yeah, we should say the boss is a real prick.
He really is. He forces the guy. He's like, drop me off at the shore. I'm not going any further. And the guy's like, no, you get out right here. So he swims back to the shore, and they go into this area and meet the Frogfather. And it's incredible. It's simple, but it surprised me in so many ways. Number one, his prose and the description of the Frogfather are incredible. And that's what I look for in weird tales. I really like a good description of a weird monster. And this has that in spades. This Frogfather is so well described and so creepy. Also, with books of this time, you never know when you're going to step on kind of a racism landmine. And you do in Lovecraft, and you do in Robert E. Howard's horror tales. Every once in a while, there'll just be something you're like, oh God. And I was afraid of that happening here. But Manly Wade Wellman has a completely different take than a lot of the other writers of this time did. And I love that in the long run, this is a story about people that aren't a part of an area. In this particular case, white people not listening to somebody that knows the area very well, the native, and in the end, they're the idiots. And that was really nice. That was a really interesting turnaround, and I find that happens a couple of times in this collection and just the stories that we read. So that was really exciting for me, because at first I was like, okay, we're going to have the obligatory random racist comment because of the time this was written. And that was not the case at all. It was really a breath of fresh air in that sense.
And we should say that the story is narrated by the younger man. He's like, he's, maybe you could say he's a more passive character because he's younger and working somewhat reluctantly for this, because he's poor otherwise, for low pay for this creep. I guess he runs, is it a bait shop or something? It's included. It's kind of the why that he's cheating local people and can.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of a trope that you mentioned. It's good you mentioned that, because that's kind of I hate to use the word trope, but that's kind of a common theme with Wellman, that rich, arrogant people who don't listen to the locals getting their comeuppance. I think that happens a lot in his
he hates the man. Manly Wade Wellman hates the man.
And he loves
the average person, and the average person is always the heroes in his stories.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Like the landowners, the landlords, those are the bad guys. The politicians, usually anyone who's in power is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Or witches. He doesn't seem to like witches or warlocks much. Sorry, Nick. Well, Nick, what did you think of Frogfather?
I thought it was too short.
Yeah, it is a short and sweet one.
I would have liked to have just seen more, and I guess that's it. The guy the business owner, the guy who wants the frog legs, he is
Sawtell,
a jerk.
is that his name? Mr. Sawtell or something?
I didn't write down his name. I did write down the name of the Frogfather, which is Kangabasi.
Yeah. Kangabasi. That's another thing Wellman's good at, is names.
Yeah, I think he just made it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the
white kid who
we have Lee Brown Coy's depiction of Frogfather, which is not quite as cool as the prose version.
The Frog King, whatever, is he's kind of humanoid also.
It's Ranson
Cuff. Yep, that's what I was just gonna say. Also, I wanted to
somewhere else, I think, but
I want to quickly say that this reminded me of this. I think that Michael McDowell was probably inspired by this kind of weird tales writing, because this felt like it could have been one of the swamp creature episodes out of this book. Really, really brilliantly done. I liked the length. Sorry to be contrary, Nick, but I
didn't have a problem with the length either.
I really liked how simple of a story this was. Don't go over there. There's a big ass thing that's going to mess you up. And Mr. Cuff thinks he knows better than everybody else. And like a dumbass goes over there, and little idiot narrator goes with him. And in the end has to get saved by the guy that they kicked off the boat. It was brilliant. I think
it's also as typical with Wellman is that the innocent person is usually allowed to
spared.
Go by the spared, right?
That
obviously Kangabasi has no interest in him. He wants the repulsive toad of a man.
Yeah.
The kid didn't work for him. He was a slave. The mom owed the guy money, so he took him on.
I see.
To pay off a debt.
So he didn't have a choice.
He's an indentured servant.
Yeah, he had nowhere to go, so he was just kind of along for the ride. I also liked that it was anti-killing frogs.
Yeah. Frogs are cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because obviously there's a lot of talk about frogs' legs, etc. And this screened off private area where he can hear, this Cuff guy can hear all these frogs in there because they know they're safe.
Yeah.
And they make a mention of, well, how would you react if you were if someone came into your home to try to attack your family and children? You would probably do something similar to Kangabasi.
Yeah.
Maybe not, devouring, but and I really love the image of this boy is I'm assuming he's teenager or something. Anyway, he's under the water and he sees the Frogfather carrying him tucked under his arm down to this kind of I guess den or place where he lives down below where Kangabasi lives. And just that description is really evocative
it really is.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And like you say, I don't think they give him a name. That might be not so good. But the old, what do they call him? The old Indian, I think, is the guide. Does he get a name?
No, he said I never knew his name. Yeah, they said I never knew his name.
Right. But he of course has paddled ashore, got a canoe, and came back to pick up the boy.
Yep.
and say, well, the old dude got what's coming to him, basically, right? So. But this is before, not to jump ahead, but it's kind of the reason why I included the Pineys, because the Pineys has a slightly different ending than Wellman will usually deliver.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's why I included that, because quite often good triumphs, and that doesn't, I guess you could say in a way in the Pineys good triumphs. It's a different kind of good, I suppose, but it has similar themes about meddling where you shouldn't. All right, well, any last comments on Frogfather, guys?
Simple, sharp, and amazing.
Okay, well, Nick, how about you talking about the next one in this volume, which is Sin's Doorway, and that was published in January 1946. So
okay, so Sin's Doorway, this is very much a Silver John story. This, you could have just taken John and plopped him right in this story, I think. So it has the unnamed narrator who's walking through the hills, and he comes upon a funeral.
And he's starving, right? We should mention.
He's poor, he's hungry, and there is a funeral. And this is actually in one of the John the Balladeer short stories, to where the preacher is like, will anyone in the audience, crowd, whatever, will anyone here eat this person's sins?
I love that idea. So weird.
So when you, which is probably a real world.
I think so.
Like
I've heard of it before. Yeah.
So when you die, if you're not absolved yet, and you die with your sins, if someone is at the funeral and willing to absorb your sins, then they can go to heaven, and then you work off the sin yourself. But the setting is weird because there's these two people that are there, and they're facing the opposite. Their back is to the church. And then there's also this weird dog-like creature. It's not like a dog. It's like laying prone on the ground, and it's kind of weird shaped. And it's sitting by the casket. Like, so the man is like he's poor and hungry, and he's like, I'll take those sins.
They offer him
the house.
$100 and a house.
Yeah.
To eat this man's sins.
So he's like, well, all right, yeah, I'll do it. And I don't think he thinks much about sins or working them off, or if he even believes in it. Right?
He's desperate.
Yeah, I just don't think he thinks that it's real. He's like, yeah, whatever, I'll eat those sins. So he does, and then he figures that he'd be in everyone's good graces, but he's not. He's like, hey, I got this $100. Can I buy some food off you? And the lady's like, don't talk to me, you monster. So he's like, and the church just scatters, and the dog thing gets up and starts kind of leading him up the trail. So he's like, okay, I guess I'm going to my house here. And he goes up the trail, and then those two weird people that were with their backs faced to the church are also following him. So he gets to, let's see.
And the creature is called Parway, by the way. Parway.
Oh, yeah, it has a name.
The doggish thing. Yeah.
So he gets to the house, and there's a man inside. And the man wants him to, I guess he's saying, like, you're our new leader. Yeah. Like, he's like, join us, but also you're the leader. You're the guy now. And then all of this kind of subtle evil stuff happens, I guess.
Yeah, the description of the house is insane. I really loved it. Yeah, he's like, this is a house, but it isn't in a house, and it like grew from a root or something. I don't remember what he says, but it is this is a more complex story, and every aspect of it was like every bit I was like, what? Because he eats the sin, which is cool as hell. Yeah. And then the dog starts following him, and the people he's trying to buy food from is like, that's what you get now that you have inherited this sin. Now this thing's going to follow you around, and it like escalates step by step as it goes to where, yeah, like he's now the leader of some kind of weird satanic cult, because
it's like a cult in the making, right? It's only 4 members or something, but
because he ate these sins, and they're trying to get him to agree to something, and he has to do one more step to kind of become this.
I think they want him to take some papers or sign some papers that belong to this obviously warlock or devil worshiper guy named Levi Brett, and the narrator is starting to get the idea that he's in way over his head and he's not liking any of it, doesn't want any part of it, and they're pressuring him to do it.
And the dog is almost like it doesn't talk, but it almost has like this presence, like it is intelligent, like it's communicating with him.
Yeah.
And then the two people that walked with him, they're kind of like old school zombies. Like not brain-eating zombies, but like from a 1930s
I got the impression they were just kind of weird, ferret-faced kind of. And Wellman does that frequently other times too, where they're the followers of Satan are kind of, they get almost rodent-like the more they do it. But they're very strange, and there's an old man and an old woman, and they kind of cackle at each other and do weird. It's very strange. And the guy that confronts him, I forgot his name, but he's more kind of, I guess, normal, quote unquote, but he's obviously, he's the one that's the kind of doing the silver tongue, trying to get him to accept the situation and how great it's going to be when he inherits all this knowledge, this evil knowledge that Levi Brett gathered in his life before he passed away.
I like that zombie thing, Nick. That's interesting. They did seem kind of,
Well, they seemed very passive kind of character.
Yeah, very interesting.
But when the narrator tries to leave the house, this creature, the familiar, blocks his path, and he wants some food, and then some food appears on the table, but it looks strange. It smells really good, and this poor guy felt sorry for him for the whole book, because I like my food, obviously. He's starving and he wants to eat it, but he gets a sense that it's wrong somehow. And then he really freaks out when the tray moves towards him, like on little legs coming across the table or something. And
everything is so visual in this. I think that aren't the dog's legs backwards or something? Like they bend backwards.
And they have like kind of paws like a monkey or something, like hands or something.
I think this idea of legs bending the wrong way is really interesting to Wellman, because it happens twice in the stories that we've read.
Right, it's in Coven too that's right. With the demon thing, or the hairy horned one, or whatever it's called. He's really good. And if you read more, you'll see that Wellman liked this Gardenell idea, because he uses it in another story in here, Come Into My Parlor, and he uses it also, I think, Nick, and is it in After Dark? It's in one of the Silver John novels too, so he uses it occasionally, where it's kind of a supernaturally evilly grown house that looks like a house but not quite like a house, and it's kind of alive and so organic.
Cool. So cool. So weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was very original. He's such an original writer.
Yeah.
Well, he fits. It's unfortunate that he's kind of, he's getting more appreciation now, maybe, but on YouTube and things, but he kind of slipped through the cracks. He's one of those writers that, thankfully, these younger guys like Karl Wagner, David Drake, and Stuart David Schiff, and some other people, Ramsey Campbell, discovered or remembered him and kind of championed him to get him back. And he got a contract out of it to start writing more books and stories and things. So
they made a movie. They made a Silver John movie.
Really? They did. It's pretty bad, but it's interesting.
It's like what you said, Nick. He came up with this concept of a house grown from evil, which is brilliant. But then he writes it like it's a folk tale. Like this is real. Yeah, like this is stuff that people from this area absolutely believe, and it's hard to tell what he made up and what he added. It's really brilliant.
One of his real strengths is because he can, when he does these Appalachian stories, is you really can't tell, is this something that he heard and picked up? Is this something he created? I'm guessing most of them he imagined, that came up with himself, but he puts enough kind of verisimilitude in there that you could say, oh yeah, that could be a folk tale. Yeah, I can see that.
I bet some of them are just like maybe a campfire story that he expands on.
Yeah.
That's probably very true.
Yeah, this fits into the tall tales tradition a little bit. Those ghost stories we grew up reading, or our uncles would tell us, or whatever. Yeah.
And it, yeah, and of course, you know, I really like the way that the narrator gets out of this, and it's also used later where the clothes have certain kind of power or connection, and the way he throws the jacket or coat or something that has the
put
money.
the jacket on. Just put the jacket on. Just try it on. Yeah. Just try the jacket on. Like, I will not try that jacket on.
And he throws it back at the guy, and it's like wrapped around his head, like a hat or something, you know. And it's cursed money and things.
Yeah, like that was he had one more step to truly eat the sin, and he had his grace period and returned his purchase. Yeah. I wonder if anybody in town gave him food after that.
I got the impression that he was going to hightail it out of that town. I don't believe him.
Yeah.
But he ends the story hungry and desperate still, but, you know, with his soul intact. So.
Yep. Great story. Yeah, it's if you put this next to the Frogfather, I think you see the two, the simplistic kind of gotcha story and the really complex kind of folk religion Appalachian stories, right? Like you said, this one could be Silver John, but you said earlier the Frogfather could be too. But for me, these two stories are different sides of Wellman.
Yeah, I think this collection does show a pretty good range, and they're all kind of a piece, I suppose, which is you would want for a collection. I mean, they are separated into little different categories, but there's I tried to pick some that would give a kind of a variety there. These two are from the section Pages from a Memory Book, so maybe that's the folkloric aspect of them. And then we get into Gray Voices, and I'm sure these are things that Karl Wagner, you know, subtitled or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But that's what the Pineys. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to say about Sin's Doorway? No? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'll just talk briefly about the Pineys then. The Pineys is, again, quite a different side of maybe a more traditional. I mean, a lot of it is true to Wellman, but the ending might be a more traditional kind of horror story ending. But the Pineys starts with the narrator, again, a kind of folksy, young, handsome, kind of down home sort of hero, seemingly sitting in the back of a car. I guess he was hitchhiking, and this I guess he works for the forestry department or something.
Yeah,
the hitchhiker or the toad man.
No, sorry, the man who picks him up. Sorry, the guy who picks him up. And his name is, what is his name? Hold on, Mr. Bow. And Mr. Bow is there with his, I guess she calls him uncle, but she's more of his secretary, if I recall.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, as usual with Wellman, she's a very good-looking young lady. And anyway, that he's asking at this kind of general store how to get to the place, this grove, Pineys Grove. And the locals are like, you don't want to go there. You know, there's a lot of bad stories about there, things that happened there. And so Mr. Bow is like, yeah, whatever. And so the narrator is kind of just along for the ride, I guess. And because he's kind of chilled out and seems to know some things, the Mr. Bow says, you want to come work for us? So, let's see. What is the guy's name? Mac. I guess he goes by Mac. And it's Terry, I think, is the name of the young woman. Anyhow, they drive along in the general direction. Again, someone at the store does eventually give Mr. Bow directions on, if you really want to go there, it's down the road a ways, and then they pass older black man walking down the road, and they ask more directions, and he's like, you don't want to go there, you know. So, and then they go into
not listening to the locals, man.
Yep. And by this point, the Terry is getting a little nervous. Mr. Bow is completely clueless and confident, and Mac's just kind of like, hey, I'm not worried about anything, sort of deal, which might be a hint for what's coming next. Anyway, they go into this kind of covered over road, and they end up in this grove where there's these pine trees that are a very special kind of pine that Mr. Bow wants to take some samples of and try to grow elsewhere. And
for the logging industry,
for the logging, not just to create a new forest.
He's the man.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, he's not presented as a bad guy as far as how he treats people or anything. Yeah, he's not like Rance and Cuff from Frogfather.
Right.
He's pleasant enough individual, but he is definitely representing the man. And the grove is this kind of open space between all these trees is littered with a bed of pine needles all around there. And they start to set up camp, and Terry's sent back to get some food, and they come back and they have some food. And Mr. Bow is like, yeah, no problem. I'm going to go to sleep. And then Terry starts talking about, what are the Pineys? You seem to know a lot about the Pineys, Mac. And he's saying, oh, well, this and that. So you guys, anyone else want to chime in on this story? What did you think of this story? Because I think it is different from the first two in some ways.
So while I was reading it, I was thinking of the Puritans and this concept that you don't want to step into the forest around the cities because that's where the devil dwells. So I think he's pulling on a long, like I've never heard of Pineys, but I like this concept that there's ground for humans, and then there's ground for the stuff beyond the human veil, right? The things beyond. And I loved his description of this perfectly flat, open area that looks almost swept and well taken care of. Like he describes it almost as a cathedral, that these pines are kind of creating a cathedral ceiling. Really, really beautiful. The twist in this one, see, I hate saying this kind of stuff because it's not Manly Wade Wellman's fault, and I don't know how people would have read this in the past, but the twist in this was super obvious. And when Terry starts trying to guess who is this secret Piney King, the Piney King. So the Pineys are these little
kind of tree spirits, I guess.
Spirit/demons. They have a king, and the king has special piney powers that he can turn into a human and walk amongst humans. Right
and once
away,
we hear that, I think it's pretty clear what's going on. Right?
Yeah, so they were like, okay, this hitchhiker is absolutely the Piney King, and he's building up, and I'm like, oh, Terry's scared, and she's like, I think one of us is the Piney King, and I'm like, yeah, and he's like, you think it's me, and I was like, yeah, and she's like, no, man, it's got to be this ugly guy that kind of looks like a frog. It's got to be Mr. Bow, and I'm like, oh my God, Terry, why?
Well, we should say also, it's interesting that Terry, an old woman, when she knew she was coming here, told Terry or gave Terry some mystical powder or something. So she makes this ring where you're supposed to keep all evil spirits out. But there's a little problem with that, as it proves. The Pineys don't. You kept all the ones out, but what about the ones that are in? And then they all start coming out of there.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a horror story.
It totally was, and it's right.
A straight up horror story. That's why it's a little more conventional, I think. For
it does not end well for the innocent.
Yeah, in this case, the innocent girl is not, going to get out of it, and that's unusual for Wellman, right? So,
Jeff, if the Pineys are actually the Sonokins,
the Shonekins,
Is that
they
what
mentioned that they might be related, but I think the way the Shonekins end up being so Chris, Shonekins, you'll find them in After Dark. Shonekins are Wellman's conception of a race of kind of proto-humans, kind of devil worshipping humans that were here and even before the Indians maybe. And so he mentions that in here, that some people say that. I think he backtracks on that because they're not depicted at all like the Shonekins are later depicted. But
they almost seem to me like wild Shonekins, because they have the furry bodies, but they have the long legs and then the
longer finger. Yeah,
the longer finger, and that's the Shonekins right there.
Yeah, it's the ring finger, right? That's longer
Yeah.
than the middle finger.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a Shawnican thing for sure. Yeah, but they're the Shawnikins that we meet later in the John Thunston stories and also in the Silver John stories are different in a lot of ways. But yeah, so it could be that they're a wilder version of the Shawnikins. Yeah,
I was wondering if this was the first appearance or maybe the first time he got the idea.
It might be
of that, and that's why it's not very well developed. Why he just kind of is like, oh, maybe it's this thing, and he just kind of left it go as part of the folk tale, and then afterwards he's like, man, I should make that into something. And then he made them more humanoid so he could work them into other aspects, so they weren't just like wild woodland creatures.
First, he introduces them, I think, in a story that came out a year before this, apparently, or a couple years before this, because this came out in 1950. Sorry, so he has a John Thunston story in Weird Tales called The Shawnikins in 1945. It came out, so
maybe not.
But it's a very good theory.
I like that theory. That's a good. But I mean that ring finger being long. That's hard to. That's hard to. Yeah, I like the idea of these being wild versions, Nick.
I think that's probably there's some kind of relation.
Yeah.
We don't ever hear of the Pineys again, as far as I'm aware, after this story, but we do have lots of the Shawnikins. So it could be that it's just a wild cousins of them, but they're interesting. That of course, like Chris would mention earlier with the other kind of mythological connections, there's all sorts of dryads, tree spirits from Greek myths or whatever that you could link this back to. But Wellman's doing a very North American centric version of that. I think though they describe the hair as almost like a bunch of pine needles all over them or something. It's really interesting.
Yeah, he says, I don't know if they're covered in hair or wearing pine needle clothes, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah.
They have short legs and long arms, right? I think I said that backwards.
Yeah.
Short legs, long arms.
Yes, short legs, long arms.
And the Shawnikins are supposed to be smallish people, but small human size. Like I think these are a little shorter, maybe. Anyway, I don't know why I was curious about that too, Nick, where he mentions the Shawnikin connection. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of odd because they don't seem like Shawnikins. But I almost got the sense it was like a folk tale passed around of that these were somehow related or whatever, and he was trying to tie it into his Shawnikins some way. So, Chris, was this your least favorite story then because it was more predictable for you of the 5 that we read?
I really liked all these stories. I guess this is the only one that I was able to predict. But no, I think this is a great story. I would highly recommend a read of this story. I think it was awesome. Yeah, I feel like the Frogfather is my favorite. But I can't really do a least favorite.
I guess worse is the wrong way to put it. Just the one that you, because it was more predictable, it was maybe your least favorite of them.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this one, I actually really enjoyed this one a lot. You're right. This is the only story that I was like, oh, that's kind of dumb at that one part. But it wasn't because the writing was dumb. It was because I couldn't handle Terry making such a dumb decision.
Yeah, Terry makes you kind of wonder why Terry's even going, but they bring in the fact that she's his secretary. And
right.
So it's kind of a job, right?
Yeah. But no, really I can't say this is a bad story. I can't. This is a good story. This is a really enjoyable story. And the weird folklore of the Pineys is incredible. And I like its connection to early American religious fear of the wilderness. I think that it taps into that really, really beautifully.
Yeah, I think does he mention the Devil's Croft? I can't remember if I think he does, where he says
I think so.
they cut this piece away of land. That's no one goes there, and the spirits can stay there. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Really
so how about you?
Cool.
You seem to like the story pretty well.
Yeah,
the man gets it.
I love anytime the man gets it. What I really like about, we read a lot of books because we do on the YouTube. So I think we kind of read faster, we just consume it faster. And I've gotten in the habit of just reading kind of fast. This is his stories, especially these style in particular, is something that I just slow down, and it really like just pulls you in, and it almost is like there's just this darkness around you. It's just this that exists, this world he creates it. It's so real, and he writes it so descriptive, and I love it so much. I don't know how to.
He builds an atmosphere.
Yeah, he builds an atmosphere, and like you say, his description is very original. You know, he says sometimes a simile or something where you go, "Wow, I wouldn't have thought of that." You know, and it's very simple, but also very vivid at the same time.
Yeah, kind of. The prose disappears, and you just watch the story unfold like a film in your head, which is the best way to write prose, in my opinion.
I think that's a good point, Nick, that you feel like you want to slow down to kind of savor the prose a little bit too, right? Yeah, so because it's really about the journey more than the destination a lot with his stories.
And for creating such wild concepts, wild creatures, and none of it is confusing. None of it's like, you're never like, what's going on? Like, it's very concise. It's very clear.
Yeah, I never had to go back and reread a passage because I was like, wait, what? No.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, it's just this dog with weird monkey paws.
Yeah.
His legs are backwards, and he describes it so well. You're like, it's in my head. I got it.
Yeah,
like it's perfect.
And it's also like almost offhand, right? Like it's just one weird aspect of many other weird aspects, because you got that Gardenell house, you got, you know, the weird old couple running around. It's like, yeah, you want that idea? Here's another one over here. You know, he's not like saying, this is my one idea that I got to really milk. You know, he just kind of offhandedly throws them out there, you know. So I wonder if that simplicity is partly why he's not, he's kind of fallen through the cracks a bit, because, you know, someone like Lovecraft, who overwrites at times, you know, as great as he is, people might study it more. There's a lot of factors, I'm sure, but I'm just kind of curious why Wellman is well regarded, and he was obviously well regarded in his lifetime, especially later in life, by younger people who grew up reading his stories, I guess. But he kind of vanished in some ways from his books aren't, you know, regularly in print, and it's kind of a curious thing because he is so good, right? So you'd think that he would have really
but he's very cultural. It's very anthropological. You figure that it would be studied.
Yeah, it's really strange because, like, honestly, Lovecraft is one of my least favorite Weird Tales writers. He overwrites, and then he does these crazy endings that
you don't like the melodrama, right?
Right. I don't like him sucking out all the mystery at the end. It's suddenly it's all gore and weirdness. That is not my style of weirdness, and that doesn't make him a bad writer. But I feel like the Lovecraft rediscovery and everybody's obsession with Cthulhu made him the only Weird Tales writer that survived, and writers that happen to be lucky enough to have tried to write in his universe got a little bit of fallback from that fame. Clark Ashton Smith, August Derleth,
and of course you have Robert E. Howard, who kind of went his other way.
Robert E. Howard did it himself with Conan. Yeah. Right. But it's really strange. Yeah, you're right. Robert E. Howard is a weird.
But you're right. It's kind of a different vibe completely than
it is. It's really strange to me. I mean, I don't want to get too high up on my horse here, but it's really strange to me that this type of writing is being forgotten entirely, because as far as horror goes, this is some of the weirdest, scariest stuff that I've ever read. And I didn't read a lot of it when I was a kid. I read all the 80s horror stuff. And I did read Lovecraft, but I never cared for him as a teenager. So yeah, coming to it now, I'm just like and it's the atmosphere that Nick was just talking about. There's an atmosphere to this, and I don't know why, but people just disregard all of this. And I think it's ridiculous. And I think that I would read If somebody was like, "Hey, you want to read some Lovecraft or some Wellman tonight?" I'd choose Wellman. I absolutely would. This is, in my opinion, the subtle atmospherics of it are better than the constant ending of, and then he saw a creature that he couldn't understand and he went insane. Like I can only take that so many times. And I think that Wellman is tapping into creatures and folklore and creating his own weird in ways that that are much more interesting. Okay, I'm getting off my soapbox.
Those
Not
are good
to mention
points.
his ways with religion and Christianity.
Yeah.
Like this is like almost like Christian mysticism.
Yeah.
He definitely taps into that with the Silver John stories. Now there is, to be fair, I will say there are some of the Silver John stories have a kind of formula to them, so they shouldn't probably be read a lot in sequence, just like the Jarrell stories shouldn't be read. I mean, because they came out, the Silver John stories were in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, but they didn't come out all at once, right? So I can read, I like them enough, and probably Nick too, I read them straight through with no problem. But someone like Tim was like maybe going, well, they're a little much alike. They have enough cosmetic differences to be interesting, but so he does have, and maybe later in his career, a little more of a formula, but the formula is so good you don't really mind it. But and he shakes it up enough. But these early stories, he's trying all sorts of different things. So I think you're getting a lot of fairly good variety there, I think. But even that, because Silver John is like a hangout kind of character once you get to know him. I think you would agree, Nick, right? You just kind of want to hang out and see what he gets up to, right? He's just kind of going around. The novels are, the novels are more drawn out. The short stories are kind of to a point, and they're polished to jewel-like perfection. And the novels are maybe a little garrulous and overlong in some ways for the plot, but you don't mind because you're hanging out with Silver John. So, it's just, and the descriptions are great. So I think your point is good, Chris, but I don't want to oversell Wellman that everything is going to be wildly original all the time. So, he does have some things that he comes back to,
because I've only read these 5 stories that you assigned to us.
I mean, I think this gives you a good
original.
I think that gives you a good, you're not going to be disappointed with what you read from on here, I don't think. But not all of it is going to be, as you read more and more, you'll start to see, oh yeah, Wellman's doing it, his thing, but they're all little different corners of it, I think. I don't know, Nick, do you have any observations on that as far as
he does some similar things. The stranger going into the town. That's what I was saying about the Sin's doorway. Yeah. So every Silver John story starts like that.
Yeah.
He's walking up and he's walking into the town. There's something weird going on. There's some evil, the man, or creature, or whatever. And then,
which is just Star Trek, the original series. It's just planets instead of towns.
And we mentioned before the man, the kind of the figure that either is, if not outright evil, is not listening to, is taking advantage of some of the local culture, or is lording it over the people with some kind of power. That's a very common thing for Wellman. So and how innocence confronting. Or a purity, I guess you could say, a kind of spiritual purity confronting evil. Again, those are universal themes for horror and weird fiction. So it's not like
I think he wrote these stories for his neighbors, and he didn't give a shit if they sold it.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Good. Well, anything more about the Pineys? We wrapped that up pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's come back to you, Chris. You want to talk about the Hairy Thunderer? Wellman wrote several stories from the point of view of Native Americans, or about Native Americans. So I thought I wanted to include this one as an example of that. So what did you think of the Hairy Thunderer?
I thought it was really interesting. At first, I had some similar fears when they had the native character in Frogfather. That you've got this kind of white folktale writer taking on this native voice, but I think first off, I love history enough to love the idea of him imagining what these first meetings must have been like between natives and Europeans. I love the fact that he makes this particular colonizer this insane, terrible, evil person that literally uses a drug, in this case alcohol, to addict the tribe, gives the first couple free, and then starts taking all their stuff and taking all the power. So yeah, I felt like definitely this is a story that shows the kind of evils of what happened between these meetings, but then the philosophy of the spider and killing what's weaker, and the huge spider. And if there's anything that I'm actually kind of have a phobia of, it's insects, and I live in the wrong part of the earth for that. There's some nasty bugs out here, but yeah, I really enjoyed this kind of, I would say, historical fiction at the beginning, followed by an amazing Weird Tales ending, where instead of the real story, which is effed up and sad, we get a story where the people are able to use spirituality to defeat the horrendous evil that is the Hairy Thunderer. I really enjoyed this story.
Well, yeah, well, I guess we should say that, like you mentioned, Chris, it's set maybe at the very earliest time where Native Americans, or at least this tribe, are coming into contact with white people, and they unfortunately come in contact with the really bad one, who is implied, I think he says, driven out by his own kind, basically. He comes rolling up in a wagon, and the way Wellman describes it from the natives' point of view is that, it's like two, what did he call it? It's like two
shields
on a long pole or something for his wagon. And of course it's the Hairy Thunderer because he has, it sounds like a flintlock rifle. That's what
he had to pour, didn't he have to pour powder in?
It's quite early on, and he comes in and he acts somewhat friendly, but I guess he ends up shooting the main character's medicine man dad, who has to confront him with, I can kill at a distance with the stick, don't make me do it, and you can try your magic against mine, of course, kills him. And then his son Lone Arrow comes into as the main character to oppose, because he hates to see what this guy has done, like you say, getting the men of the tribe addicted to alcohol, that he's basically hooch that he's brewing up himself, because he actually had a still, I think.
He had a still, yep.
And had the people grow corn, the Indians grow corn, and then, they even talk about, giving him all the meat, and a couple of women, old people, and children die of starvation over this hard winter, and so then basically he starts to, when he starts to covet, is it Brightleaf? What's the name of the?
I think it was Brightleaf. No, Last Leaf. No, Last Arrow. Last Arrow.
There's Lone Arrow and something Leaf. So there's a young woman, daughter of the chief, I think, that's that Lone Arrow, our hero, loves, and she loves him back. But the Hairy Thunderer starts eyeballing her because she's so fine, and basically is going to want her to pay the debt for more hooch that the chief has got addicted to. And that's when Lone Arrow says, I'm going to take you on, dude. And the guy's saying, if you don't get out of this camp by, is it sunrise or something, or sundown? Sunrise, then I'm going to kill you. And Lone Arrow's praying what to do. And that's when the guy threatens the Hairy Thunderer, I'm going to smash you just like this spider, and smashes the spider. I'm sure Nick likes this part too. Also the nature getting its revenge. And then Lone Arrow comes back to his tent and sees a spider, and he has an impulse to kill it. And then he decides, no, he hasn't done anything to me. I'm not going to kill him. And then he starts praying, and then some bright eyes of a spider are watching him from the inside of the tent. And, basically that becomes his power against the Hairy Thunderer, which is again the man. I guess in this case he's a man of power, if not of the,
he's just evil.
He's just
a bad guy.
He is.
What year did this come out?
This was 1960, and it came out. This is the only story I think in the book that wasn't in Weird Tales. So this was in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. So this is actually after Wellman was writing some Silver John stories. So I think it's the only one. All the other ones appear to be from the 40s and 30s, late 30s, and the opening poem is from 1928 from Weird Tales, but everything else seems to have credit for Weird Tales except this. This is from the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, and it's the oldest story or the latest published story in this edition.
I just think that the idea here of the European coming in and giving alcohol and just destroying the community, destroying the lives of those people is something that we've heard many times in our era, right? But at this time, how often was this story told? How often were people talking about what really happened? Scenarios like this,
yeah.
You know? I mean, I don't know.
Its time.
Maybe later in the 60s, but I think in 1960, it was starting to be talked about in Western films and some like Broken Arrow and things. But this particular aspect with the fire water thing, I think was probably pretty fresh. Yeah, at that time, at least in this kind of story, I would say. The kind of weird fiction story.
Yeah, that was, I mean, the beginning is totally heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And just to see him come in and then be trusting. And he's like, here, I'll do you a favor. I'll kill this buffalo with my boomstick.
Yeah.
And then, then they get some started. And then he's like basically a pusher. He knows what this alcohol is going to do. It's probably why he got kicked out of town.
Yeah.
Making this for like ruining the community where he was from. He knew what he was doing.
He also might have been, preying on young maidens in those places too. You might kind of have that feeling. Maybe he's kind of a pervy creep too. So, yeah. And of course this spider, I guess we've been spoiling as it goes, but the spider kind of, he manifests as all the spiders in the world almost, or so it just kind of takes the form of this giant spider. And unlike the other stories, and unlike most Wellman stories, the bad guy gets off. I was a little disappointed about that.
Right.
But I think he wrote himself into a corner. Like the whole power is that the weak, the strong do not prey on the weak.
Right.
So in this case, there's no way they could kill this. Maybe somebody else from the tribe could have, but
shoot him in it back as he's
right.
leaving.
But Lone Arrow couldn't, because literally the way
that's his power that he
exactly that
he was sparing the weaker creature, and he talks, and as this giant spider is wrapped these bands of black silk cord around so that he can't even reach his gun or do anything. And I think he tries to get his gun and can't anyway, but before the giant spider's going to devour him, Lone Arrow says, the stronger shouldn't kill the weak without, reason. And then the spider's like listening to him and then kind of just vanishes slowly as he lets him go.
Yeah.
And how he keeps everything that belonged to them, like the hides and things, but anything that belonged to the Hairy Thunderer guy is toast. He burns it down.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of gunpowder in there, so he really burns it down.
Mm-hmm. So Hairy Thunder is lucky to get off. He has nothing. He's just by himself out in the wilderness running off. So hopefully
I don't think he'll last long.
Yeah.
I think it depends on superior technology, and now he doesn't have any of that. Does he leave with his gun?
No. I think
it melts.
Yeah,
I think they describe it melting.
Yeah. So I don't think he'll be surviving long.
No, not out on the plane. I'm guessing it's on the plains. Did you guys get that feeling? I think they're plains.
I did.
Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't specify a tribe exactly, but which is probably wise. But
yeah.
So did you guys like this story then? Nick, what did you think of this story?
I think this is probably my least favorite.
Okay.
I just I don't know. It was cool that they got revenge, but they didn't though.
You just wanted the spider to eat his head off.
He's get eaten by a bear, and they like see him walking away.
They found his, they found his remains in the scat later.
Foot comes running up.
Some Pineys jump on him.
For real.
Yeah, it is very rare that a villain gets off in a Wellman story. At least in a morality tale like this, obviously the Pineys is different because
and it was real too. I mean, this really happened. So I don't know. I like fake worlds.
So it was a little too much of a downer in part of it for you to.
Yeah.
I see. I did think though, like Chris said, you might think, how's he going to handle this? I think he handles the depiction of the tribe and its kind of politics and the culture pretty well for the time. I think pretty even-handedly and respectfully, right?
Respectfully, totally. And it's cool. It had an awesome message. I'm not saying that. I mean, this was like it probably had a bigger message than any story in here. But yeah, it was a bummer.
Well, I like how at the end it says that that on his. A couple of things that I thought were funny. He takes what's her name? The maid and something.
We don't know. Yeah, something.
Remember her name?
Into
his tent.
Last
leaf and doesn't come out until the next day. Which hello, what's going on there? But obviously, he's just saying to the chief, "She came to me. I got rid of the Hairy Thunder. She's mine, dude."
Yeah.
Kind of. And then he becomes the medicine man for the tribe. And how he says that he would put a curse on anyone who ever harms a spider in the tribe. And he has a big spider image painted on his outside of his tent.
I wouldn't survive in that tribe. First spider I saw, I'd kill. It'd be over.
It's interesting. I thought that was he has other stories where there's no white guys involved. There's the man with the skull. There's the man with skull in his ear or something in here, which is just basically one Indian against another Indian sort of thing. So he had a phase where he was writing some of these stories, which is interesting. So, okay, well, let's go back to Nick then. You want to talk about Coven, Nick, our last story, which is the novelette. In the end of the book, there's two novelettes, both with Sergeant Jaeger, later known as Bible Jaeger, and later in the 70s in his career resurgence at the end there, Wellman came back and wrote two more short stories with this character. Who's now Toad's Foot and what are they're in this.
So I noticed that the story before this one is called Fearful Rock.
And that's same
Coven takes place in the very last scene at Fearful Rock. Which is a place. So I thought that was interesting.
They've changed it to Welcoming Rock, right?
Right, but then in the end, they end up in front of Fearful Rock.
And there's two more stories, Toad's Foot and For the Love of a Witch, which he wrote and published in the 70s. He came back to that character. Toad's Foot was actually in 79 in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, and For the Love of a Witch, For the Love of a Witch was showing at 1939 for Strange Tales. So I thought that was Bible Jaeger. I might be mistaken. At least there's one more story, I should say. Maybe there's only three. But he did come back to that character, and it's a very cool story, much shorter than these two. But I figured Fearful Rock is quite long, and I think and it's quite epic. It's well worth reading. But I think Coven is probably a good length, I thought, and representative enough of his character. So, Nick, you want to talk about Coven?
I'll try, but I didn't take any notes on this one, so I don't know anyone's name.
I'll help you out there, I think. Well, so of course, there's Sergeant Jaeger, and the main guy is come on, what's his name? Give me just a second here.
Started with a W. His last name starts with a W.
I think it's Willett.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Where is he? Cole Wickett. Sorry, Cole Wickett is his name.
Good old Cole Wickett.
He's a Southern boy.
And the young woman is Susan, I think her name is.
Yeah, Susan.
Yeah, Susan Dole is beautiful and helpful, but I had already noticed that. Yeah, great last line. But don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So yeah, don't worry about that, Nick. Just do it in your own inimitable book graveyard style.
Good, because I can only retain like 2 names at a time. All right, so this one it starts off at the end of the Civil War, and it's from the perspective of a young Southern soldier.
Yeah, he's 15.
He's 15. He's not like
like
he's
young.
underage. He's a little kid.
He lied and said he was
About his
18.
age, I think. Yeah.
And he gets captured, and they ask him all these weird questions. How did they put it? Because they're not like, "Are you a virgin?"
Yeah, they
like,
say, basically, do you have a sweetheart? Do you have a sweetheart?
Do you have a sweetheart? And he says, "I've never had a sweetheart.
I would never have a sweetheart." So they're basically asking if he's a virgin, and I'm like, okay, I think I can kind of see where maybe this is going. And so
I thought they were going to sacrifice him.
Yeah, right. So they detain him in this tent or whatever, and in the middle of the night, a strange woman comes in. She's like, "I'll be your sweetheart."
Yeah,
and he has a bad feeling about it. And then
the smell of death is on her.
And then in runs the General
Sergeant Jagger. Yeah, the guy who lays a hand like a hay fork. That's how big his hands are. He's not so tall, but he's like twice as broad as this young man. Yeah.
So the Sergeant Jaeger comes in and dispels her with scripture, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she scurries away, screeching. And then this
is so wild. This is such a cool piece of folklore.
So then they're like, okay, well, Cole
Take
Wicket, young man, we need your help. So we need you to strip down naked.
Yep.
And he's just like, okay, yeah, no problem. He doesn't even like question. He's like, all right. And then like, here, we need you to get on this black horse over here, and we're gonna take you through the graveyard. And then once the horse gets to the graveyard, it stops at a grave. It won't walk over, and there's people around him having a conversation.
They're trying to smack it or prod it.
And
right?
I think the best part about all of this is that they don't explain what any of this means until the end of the damn story. So all you're getting is there's just this Southern kid naked on a horse, and the horse stops, and they start smacking it, and it won't go, and they're like, "This must be it."
Yeah. So the guys
get the impression when they bring out the steak or whatever that what's going to happen.
Right.
But the kid's not knowing what the hell's going on.
Right.
Yeah. So there's guys around them, and they're like, "Oh, it's this is just like it says in the prophecy or wherever they read about it."
Yeah, so go get your clothes on and help us dig, boy.
Yeah, so help us dig it up. And he still is just like he's down because he feels like that was an evil entity. That woman was something that was wrong. Right. So he's kind of like all in, like right away. And they dig up the grave, and there's the woman, and then it's a vampire. They get.
I thought it was interesting that they put one through her chest as usual into her heart, and the preacher puts it through her neck. Or severs her head with the shovel.
Yes.
He cuts her head off with the shovel, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of folklore that you pierce and cut.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they then basically Jagger says, or Jaeger, however you want to pronounce it, says, "You're free, boy. Go get," on the horse, and sends him off, right?
Yeah. So then we jump ahead of time. And
15 years, I think.
I thought it was more than that.
Now he's a grizzled adult that is trying to find his way.
It starts at 62 and then it's 76 or something like that. Or I forgot. They clearly mentioned the year, but yeah, it's quite a bit later. So he's like late 20s, 30, something like that. So he's still a young man, but he's also like he says, doorway. He's down on his luck.
Yeah, he's not doing well, and he's traveling around, and he comes upon it looks like a hanging, and he runs up to help.
They're beating this guy with sticks, and he's trussed up by his thumbs with his feet off the ground.
Oh, okay.
And and he sees some weird bat-like, man-like shape up in the sky in front of the moon.
And through the moon. Yeah, that was great. So then
this guy starts beating the shit out of those other two, right? Yeah, fighting with them.
So yeah, he I think he comes up and he doesn't just throw a rock at one of them. Just
Yeah,
he does.
He picks up a rock. They both turn around and he's like, wham! And then he's like, now I got to go get my rock. And he starts heading in for the other one because he wants to get his rock.
So,
I didn't they put that in the Silent John movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we're getting the impression that he's really tired and starving, and he doesn't really, but kind of despite himself, he's impelled to help this guy.
Yeah.
Which shows that he's a good guy, right?
So he gets the guy down and he takes him to the local house.
Right before that, though, the guy starts chanting, and he's like, "Why won't this work? Why won't this work?" Because he's casting this spell.
The other of the two, right? Yeah,
yeah, the one that he's going for. He starts saying all these weird words, and then he's like, "Why won't this work?" And this guy's still running up on him, and then gets him down and takes him to the house. But that becomes important later. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like I said, I didn't take notes on this one. Jeff gave me the assignment.
We'll help you out, Nick. Keep going. You're doing
okay.
Good.
All right. So he goes to the house. Whose house is it? McCurn's Jägermeister.
The Jägermeister himself.
Jägermeister.
Who's now a preacher.
He's a preacher. He's not a
colonel. He says sergeant, and he's like, no, I'm out of the service, young man. I'm a preacher. Just call me Jäger.
What I liked about this part is I thought, okay, Manly Wade Wellman writes a lot of Southern stories. There's lots of Southern books. He was very into the South and the Civil War. And so I was a little nervous going into this story where it was going to be heading.
Well, there was one element. Did you notice that the guy had been a Ku Klux Raider?
I did see that.
Yeah, I was like,
what the hell is that?
I was like, I'm going to assume that means that he goes and he raids the Ku Klux Klan. And
I hope so.
I like that a lot better.
I hope so.
So
indications of Wellman were that he wasn't racist. So I do hope that that's what.
There's no way, because the Song of the Slaves is in this book, and if you read the Song of the Slaves, you're like, there's no way that he was racist.
Yeah,
because that's a revenge story, a slave revenge story. What was I saying?
Sorry. Yeah.
What I liked about it was that these years had passed, and there was a Southern soldier and a Northern soldier, and it was done. There wasn't like animosity. There wasn't like, you're this, I'm that. They were just like, friend, there you go.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think Wellman earlier in the story wasn't overly disparaging of the northern side or anything either. So
yeah. So he learns that the Jaeger is the preacher, and he's been fighting a coven, I guess, of witches that worship the devil, and they're trying to
from his congregation.
All his neighbors, and he's been fighting them, and then they basically just have a showdown with the coven and the demon himself.
And
there's a lot of details we're not covering because this is a novelette about 30 pages or so, at least in the other edition I read. It's fairly long, and there's enough. It's a simple enough story, but there's enough incident that's going on. Background of who this man, because when Wicket carries the man into Jaeger's cabin and they try to treat him, but he's too heavily wounded and he dies, and then Jaeger starts to explain what's going on, and that this guy was the 13th member of the coven, and but he tried to recant, and that's why they killed him. The 13th is the horned one, or the hairy horned one, or whatever. Yeah. And then that man's daughter comes into the cabin, and she's supposed to lay down a hypnotizing spell on him, but she can't because she's pure of heart enough, I guess. And then this is one of my whole favorite scene in the whole thing, where Jaeger says, okay, Wicket, you go over there, and there's a scabbard and a sword up on the wall. Pretend you're frozen, and I'm going to do the same. And then all these outside, they're kind of saying all sorts of filthy, I guess, Satan worshiping things before to kind of gin up their strength to go in.
It reminds me of the end of that with all the mesmerizing and all that.
Mm-hmm. No orgy in this one, though, Chris. So they finally get the courage to come in to kill Jaeger and the young man, but that's when those guys start toasting him. It's a really pretty cool fight in that scene.
I do want to jump in here and say that this was the most action story of all of these, and that Manly Wade Wellman writes good action. And action's not my favorite part of these kind of books, but I was never bored. The action was exactly the length that it needed to be. I could see what everybody was doing in my head. I never got confused as to who had a knife, who didn't have a knife. There's a lot of pitfalls to writing action. It's easy to screw up, I think, and there were no screw ups that I saw in this. This was interesting, well written action. It was fun.
Yeah, Wellman does throw in action occasionally. Nick's talked about Silver John taking on some stuff with his own fists occasionally.
He don't need no gun.
Werewolves and stuff.
He don't need no gun. He'll beat up those werewolves, man.
As an echo of that, because Silver John frequently is kind of, or John the Balladeer is kind of, it's implied that some of his power against evil is in himself. And also Wellman has this thing where once you have started resisting successfully this kind of evil force, that you gain power against it by doing that more and more. And that's kind of how what they imply a little bit with Wicket, the young man in this story, that because when he takes on the demon at the end, he's not so effective with his silver bullet weapon. So he's kind of going at him mano a mano at the end, just decking on him, and the demon's having trouble with him because of that. So I thought this is part where Chris would want to talk about with the actual liminal space of
I liked that portal, and at first I was like, portal to hell. All right, we're this is obvious. We got it going on, and like this horned winged god is like hucking his followers into this weird hell portal. I don't know where they ended up, but the fun twist at the end is that because this kid, Wicket or whatever his name is, participated in that early weird ritual. And I remember half reading through this going like, why did they care if this kid was a virgin? Because they explained nothing. They finally explain at the end what we did to you. It had to be an innocent on a horse, and the horse stops at the graveyard. That's a vampire. So, but because of that, he has this kind of spiritual armor around him. That's why that guy was trying to cast the spell. Yeah, and the spell didn't work on him. So they're about to fly into the portal together, him and the horned god, and he hits the portal and stops because of his protection, and the horned god keeps going. And that's the end of that, because you're right, he didn't do much with the gun. But what I love about this is that later, I think the kid says portal to hell, and Jaeger, who's like the Yoda to this kid, is like, well, we don't know if it's a portal to hell. We only know that it's a portal. And I think that really opened up the story to be more complex than just like, let's send these devil worshippers back to hell.
That's interesting you say that, because that I thought the whole concept of their discussion after was interesting, but I thought it bogged down a little bit the story. I kind of thought it was diluting the power of the story a bit for me. Although I did like it on a philosophical level. They're talking about the nature. Is it hell? What is it? Because they kind of imply that the Harry Horn one, he didn't really want to come here. He was summoned here.
Yeah, he was not into it.
He was pissed about it.
Yeah, he was pissed about it, and he wants to get, he's going to make, Jaeger even implies that maybe he's assumed this form because that's the closest he can, that's what he can, to be corporeal in our dimension or whatever. There's some pretty out there ideas, which are cool, but I do think it's like it does kind of slow the climax down, although I guess it's more of an epilogue than anything. So
doesn't he say, you summon me to worship me and all I do is work for you?
Yes, he straight up does. Yeah. Like, you think I wanted to show up here, dude? Make another portal. We're going back. You're coming with me.
And then the one guy who summoned him kind of accidentally, they imply, maybe kind of clumsily. They were trying to, but maybe didn't quite know what they're going to get into. Because Jaeger is kind of not too down on these guys, the ones that he wants to give the ones that they killed. I think they killed about 6 or 7 of them in the fight. He wants to give them proper burials, because, and he's kind of feeling some compassion for them. I thought it was interesting. Would you guys think about this? Because Jaeger, or I keep calling him Jaeger. Sorry, I'm going to call him that. It's probably Jaeger, but he does so well in the fight in the middle part, but he kind of lets Wicked go it alone against the god. He doesn't. I thought, okay, he's going to come in at the last minute. No, he doesn't show up at all in this final fight.
He doesn't have the spiritual armor that Wicked does. Yeah,
I guess that's how he saw it. So like, okay, dude, I want you to go over there and fight the demon.
Good luck.
Right? Good luck. I'll be here if when he comes back. Which is kind of funny, but I think it's a really cool story.
Yeah, you did a good job on picking a really good variety out of this book.
Thanks. Yeah,
I think.
I think so. It's hard because there's there's another 20 some or 18 stories that we could have done that. Like Nick mentioned, is it the Song of the Slaves? That one's a really good one.
That's the one that they redid in the Atomic Werewolves and Many Plants.
Yeah. I don't have it right near me, but because I think they republished that one in a men's adventure magazine, I guess, right? That's wild too. But I wanted to do one of his longer works. So even though it's a more time commitment, and it's not long, but it is a novelette.
This was an easy read. Yeah.
Kind of to show what he does at a longer length, I guess. So
yeah.
I still haven't read any of his sci-fi stuff. I have no idea what it's like.
I don't think I have either. No,
I can't imagine. I can't even imagine it. I should just stop and read one just out of curiosity.
I'm sure because I'm sure he wrote. He wrote all sorts of stuff. He wrote detective stories for the pulps, and he wrote westerns, and I'm sure he'd do really good at westerns. But this is such a sweet spot for him. The folkloric weird tale with kind of, I guess I hesitate to call, it's hard because you want to say occult detective, but is John really an occult detective? He's not really a detective, I guess. He's more of a warrior against the occult, I suppose.
It just goes to show you how original and how different Manly Wade Wellman was.
You can't pigeonhole them very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what any final thoughts on Coven, guys?
I loved it.
All right. Well, what about to wrap this up? What are your overall views of this experience and about the book? I think we already talked about it a little bit, but anything else you want to say about Wellman and Worst Things Waiting this edition? Chris?
I was excited about this book. I'm glad to finally crack it, and I was really glad that you were here to give us a list of what to read because it was daunting. This is a thick book, but. Yeah.
What's the text like in that one, Chris? Because in Nick and I's version, it's pretty small, so it's crammed,
Yeah, mine was fine.
Yeah, it's probably similar. Yeah.
Yeah, mine did not seem. It's on the small side, but not too bad. But yeah,
it's 352 pages in this version or so of a lot of stories, right? So there's at least.
But I'm definitely going to be reading more Wellman. Absolutely. He did not disappoint at all. I've heard so much good stuff about him. And I was wondering when I cracked this, is he going to be able to live up to this hype? And the answer is yes, absolutely. This is really good stuff. If you like weird tales or cosmic horror or any of that kind of stuff, you're going to love this. And it's interesting, just a random thought, how all these early pulp writers really had to be good at writing in many genres, because it would be weird to say I have to write 3 stories a week to live, and I to make money, and I need to have my Western that I publish in this magazine, and my Robert E. Howard, one of those Conan stories is a freaking whodunit detective story. And it's weird and wrong, and it doesn't make any sense. But it's because he wrote all kinds of stuff, and mysteries weren't his favorite, but he tried because he wanted to constantly publish. And I think when I think of writers from this era, I think of them as artists, but also as craftsmen.
They're workmen, right? They're job and they're getting it done.
Yeah, like there are times like Philip K. Dick did drugs so that he could write more. That's why he liked the uppers, because he could write on them, and he could write like so many stories a week so that he could make a living being a writer. It's an interesting time. And I think Manly Wade Wellman fits beautifully in that time. And yeah, these stories went above and beyond for me. They really did.
Well, I think the average pulp writer is, like you say, just knocked them out, and some did it better than others. Some are harder to read these days, and some are like Wellman, who I think you can still, a very clear prose and descriptive and evocative, and still well worth reading, even though the stories are, pushing 100 years old. Not quite, right?
Yeah, so, and some of them before their time. Yeah.
Nick, how about you? Because I know you had a lot of John the Balladeer reading experience in a few of his Weird Tale stories, but I think you read The School for the Unspeakable. Was that right? Did you read that one?
Yeah.
And I'm curious what your thought on these are. I mean, you said earlier that you weren't disappointed, but did this show any kind of different side to Wellman that you were surprised by, or was it pretty much what you expected?
No, it was pretty much what I expected. Yeah, The School of the Unspeakable was different. If you read that, I think it's very different than these stories.
Interesting.
It was I don't know. Yeah. The School of the Unspeakable was it was kind of basic. It was like a basic horror story.
Yeah, I think it's well done. Yeah, it's just a traditional horror story kind of, yeah.
And these are more inventive.
Well, I think it's like you were saying, Chris, kind of where this is him carving out his own path in the markets, but in a market like Weird Tales or fantasy and science fiction that were wide enough that he could do his own kind of organic thing. And I think those stories for any writer are going to be their strongest, right? So I'm guessing if you read his science fiction books, they're going to be well done, but maybe not in his wheelhouse as much as these kind of more folksy kind of stories, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Let's try to see what he did for sci-fi.
I'm curious what you guys will make of his John Funston stories, because there's elements of this stuff, very much so, but Funston's much more of a kind of suave gentleman adventurer type from an urban environment, but he often goes into more country areas. I don't know if Nick's read any Funston yet, but
that was haven't. No. For some reason those are like the hardest to find for me.
Those are kind of in the late 40s Weird Tales. So I think there was 18 of them, 20 of them. There's quite a few that he wrote. So if you ever do get a copy of Lonely Vigils, those are in there. There was a Hafner Press John Funston edition, beautiful one, like the Wellman ones. I like the Silver John ones I have here, but that went out of print. I wish you would bring it back in. And the Lonely Vigils was republished in an edition similar to Chris's Worst Things Waiting, and that one's out of print now. So they're a little harder to come by. But you got What Dreams May Come. You got his second novel, and that one's set in England. So that's a kind of an American in England. So with the giant chalk man.
Why is that title super familiar?
I'm such an idiot. I hold it up in the video. You're like, you have it, dumb.
The reason that title's so familiar is I think Richard Matheson wrote. There's a story that, and then Robin Williams was in the movie version about the guy who's in heaven or going to heaven or in a purgatory.
Oh, okay. So there's no relation.
No. It's just a just Wellman do it using that title because it's from a poem, I think.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you guys too long. We're almost at the 2-hour limit, I guess. But thank you very much for joining in on this. It was a lot of fun to talk about these stories with you. There's not enough talk about Manly Wade Wellman out there, so it's nice to get your guys' perspective on these stories that I've known and read about quite a long time on my own. And that's one of the best things about the YouTube and BookTube sphere is we can find people with common ground that we might not otherwise. I don't think I've, other than my friend Kelly, my late friend Kelly, who gave me this book. I don't know anyone else who's ever read Manly Wade Wellman or knew about him, except for, some people like you guys. So, it's, that's a great thing. So thanks a bunch for that.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
For real. It was fun.
It was
looking forward to it.
Me too. And the reading of it was really fun.